Welcome to the January 24th regular board meeting this evening. If you will all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Great success.
Okay. So normally we invite the individuals, the employees that are being celebrated for acts that they did during the month. The one employee is homesick, and the other employee said, 6:30? No way I'm going to be there. So we're still going to recognize them. So last year we entered into, we signed up for this program. It's called Skill Set Training, and it has about 40 different classes that you can take online. They range between 3, 4, 5 hours long, and you can take them throughout the year. And we have actually these library cards that you can check in, and about 6 people can do it. And it's really quite interesting. So over the last year, we had over 200 classes taken. And the two that took the most classes, the first one is Dale Kirby. He took 36 classes over a 12-month period. And Stacy Hutchins took 19 classes. So while they're not here, we're going to recognize them. And we did, since Dale didn't want to be here tonight, we recognized him in his office. He felt much more comfortable there. So, but we'd like to give him a round of applause in case they're watching.
We have minutes to approve for December 13th work session.
I so move.
We have a second. Second. Any discussion? If not, we'll call for a vote on that. All those in favor? Okay. December 20th regular board meeting. Do we have a
move to approve?
Second on that?
Second.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Any discussion on December 20th? If not, let's move to approve. All those? Abstaining?
I was abstaining. I was not at the meetings.
Okay. Financial report?
No, we actually have the revealing of the candidates for the 2019 board election, and we have a representative from the elections committee here that will reveal the names.
Good evening. I'm Tom Throne. I'm chairman of the Elections Committee, and I'd like to announce the 7 verified candidates for the 2019 Board of Directors election. They are John Nuttall, Patrick Lowry, Steve McKee, Bruce Portello, Jerry Barron, Tia Bidwell, and Deborah Amons. As you know, there'll be 3 seats up for election for 3-year terms. We will be back, our committee will be back at the next meeting on February 28th to draw the order for the ballot. Then on March 19th at 6 p.m. we'll have a candidate forum at Reardon Hall, and the results of the election will be announced at the annual meeting May 21st at 6 p.m. Are there any questions?
Would it be appropriate for those who are on the running to stand up so people can see, at least see who they are? Yes. So we have 5 here tonight. Very good. We appreciate your coming and for your support. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom.
And on all those candidates, the corporate secretary, Leah Bush, went through and verified all of the signatures. They have to have at least 50 signatures, and she was able to verify for each of those candidates that are running.
Thank you. Finance report now.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. These are the preliminary results, the income statements ending December 2018 year to date. These are in thousands. Remember, these are preliminary numbers. We're still closing the books. Starting with the POA. The financial reports included in this presentation are preliminary since we are still closing the year end. Once the year end is closed, the financial reports will be posted at the POA website. Looking at the total income, $17,388,000 actual against budget, $18,065, down $676,000. Total cost of goods, $1,054,000 against $1,099,000, positive 44. Gross profit, $16,334,000 against $16,966, a negative 632. Looking at operating expenses, they're about even. $18,259 against $18,283, 24%. And then the final EBITDA, $1,925,000 negative, that's the actual. We had budgeted to be $1,317,000 negative, and that's a difference of a negative 608. And the three principal reasons for our shortfall compared to budget was, of course, the challenges of the Gulf that we've seen all year, and also the underperformance of food and beverage. Knowing that this was the first year it was open, a lot of it was guesswork on how much we would really have on the first year, and portions of capital projects getting classified as expenses. Moving on to the water. The water utility, same time. These are preliminary numbers. Total income, $8,649,000 against budgeted $7,815,000, or positive to budget $833,000. Total cost of goods, cost of water, $2,409,000 against $2,330,000, negative $79,000. Gross profit, $6,240,000 against a budgeted gross profit of $5,485,000, positive $754,000. Total operating expenses, $3,110,000 against $2,840,000, a negative $270,000. And then the EBITDA for water, $3,129,000 actual against $2,645,000 budgeted, or $484,000 positive on the EBITDA. And that concludes my preliminary report.
Questions from the board? Pat?
Dwayne, on the water, did any of that negative total operating expenses, is that attributable in any way to the newly installed meters?
Meters are a capital project, it would not be in an expenses. Yeah. Yeah, we'll give more breakdown detail when we actually close the books and we can go through some of these numbers a little closer.
Okay.
We wanted to show one thing at the close of this. A lot of people say, where do I find these numbers? Because we post these numbers each month. Where to find the financial reports on the POA website. If you look right here under Member Resources, click that, then go to Governance and Financial Reports, and then go down to Reports, Budget, and Financials, and you'll find a whole slew of our financials, our audited statements, and a lot of other stuff there. Yes.
Can I just make a comment relative to the underperformance of food and beverage? I don't really like the word underperformance. In this case, when you're talking about two operations, that basically were startup operations, Lake Point and the BB Bar and Grill. And I think we've given them, if I'm not mistaken, Tom, 3 years to become positive, which to me, quite honestly, seems a bit aggressive, but fine if we can do that. So I just make that comment. Yeah, they did underperform. I'm not going against the grain in respect to that, but there's a reason.
Yes.
There's a reason that happened, and I'd like for people to understand that.
Good point.
Other comments, questions? Not. We'll move ahead to last month's open forum comments. Property owner Bill King brought up a change to our program. Instead of doing a strictly handicap according to state law, to add 80 and over to it. It went through the proper authorities, through the Golf Advisory and through the Golf Department, and they found it to be a very worthwhile change, and so that change was made, and we appreciate Bill for bringing that to our attention. And 3 property owners talked about the Trafalgar Road fire, and we suggest that you keep your city site website going, and be sure to check that at least every couple of days to see what the latest is. Okay, tonight's open forum, if you would please state your name and your location or where you live, and please give us a courtesy if you're not a member, do not speak. We'd appreciate that. We have a couple people, or maybe 3 people who have signed up, and we will be keeping it to 3 minutes tonight. Kevin Dooley's first one up.
On my way.
Hey everyone, my name is Kevin Dooley. I'm a property owner at 122 Leicester Drive. Given the fact that we will soon be having board elections, I think there are a couple of things that the current board and potential board members might want to be aware of. There are some members who believe that the current board has abandoned them. There are a number of reasons for this, and I'll just give a couple of them. There's a perception that the response of the current board to the toxic waste dump fire on Trafalgar Road was very underwhelming. There's a perception that the board was more interested in disavowing any responsibility for it than they were in actually doing anything about it. If not for the efforts of Christopher Nelson, Kelly Strain, and a couple of other people, we would be no closer today to remediation than we were 4 months ago. And I have to question, was there anyone on the board who took this very seriously? Was there someone on the board who really felt empathy for the people who were suffering? Now we have another smoldering dump on the west side, and it's deja vu all over again. The board seems to be minimizing that. It's not enough to send a guy over in a pickup truck to drive by and then proclaim it's nothing to worry about, it's only steam. You may recall that the Trafalgar fire started the same way. Where there's steam, there's heat. And where there's heat, there's bound to be fire. And I believe we need to get ahead of this west side dump fire before it becomes another disaster. And before more members start to suffer. Okay, another example is the trails. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing about the trails, but that doesn't negate the fact that there are people still being negatively impacted by this. Was there anyone on the board who stood up and said, we can't do this, it will negatively impact some of our members? So I know there's time limitations, so I would like to address the people who are running for the board. And I'm sorry in advance if I sound harsh about this, but it's something that needs to be said. If you're running for the board because you have a personal agenda, or if you're running for the board to serve as a spokesperson for Walmart or Mojo Cycles or any other outside influence, if you're running for the board because you agree with the idea of fundamentally transforming Bella Vista into another Branson or into another dystopic tourist wonderland, then please just drop out now. This is not the type of so-called leadership that we need. But if you're running with the singular purpose of watching out for the membership, of watching out for our seniors, the jewels of our town, of watching out for our veterans and other heroes in our community, if you're running to...
Can you wrap this up real quick?
I sure will, Ruth.
Thank you.
If you're running to watch out for people who are on fixed incomes, and perhaps most importantly, to watch out for the peace and privacy of our membership, then you'll have my support, and no doubt you'll have the support of many, many other members. I know I'm out of time, Ruth. I want to say one more thing. I don't have any personal animosity toward anyone on this board. I do believe, however, that at least a few of you have become preoccupied with your own personal vision of Bella Vista. And all I ask is that you listen to me and try to understand me and at least consider changing your course of action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, I appreciate you and I've become quite aware of your efforts in the community to seek more input and bring more opinion to us at the board. I do feel like it's worth noting that although your efforts here publicly are well spoken, it doesn't come without the prerequisite of your video making capabilities, which in many ways counteract your efforts here. And although you don't seem to have said that you had any animosity towards anyone on the board, the content and the path of which the narrative you chose to create your videos online are quite different. And although I appreciate your efforts in the digital realm, I also feel many times that they do not represent the membership as a whole, and it's a dangerous tone to take when you present yourself as speaking for everyone. Now, in terms of many of the topics, that you brought, to the table, I'm definitely concerned about the stunt dump fire. There's not a portion of me that thinks that we shouldn't be out there trying to help them. It is so complicated. And if it was up to me and we could just shovel it out and build the church in half, we're not fine, but. And if we could raise the church or clean up the field or do something on good old-fashioned physical equity, then we'd do it. But we just don't have that ability with this because it's too dangerous. And I wish we could do it. And yes, there's a lot of calculated having to be responsible because of the legalities of all of this stuff, and you know that. So you can't just jump out and put it out or put a statement. And as we've had to come here and work together as a board and understand what it's like to be into a larger community, it means that we have to be careful about those things. And for anybody that's out here looking to search to be on the board or have an opinion about it, they'll soon find themselves in that same role too. And so I don't want you to carry it back that we didn't care or don't concern, because that's totally out. We spend hours concerning ourselves with it. And it's not just because we're posting on a social network upset. We're monitoring those things. We're talking to people. There's so much that goes into this. No one's sitting at this seat because they don't care about people. And I know you may think that there's personal agendas, and I'm sure everyone has their own vision because we're individuals. But we're here working together as a collective in this town. We care, okay? We really, really do. And I know that a lot of your efforts online have been to disavow those. And that hurts me, because I hear you speak here, and it doesn't seem like the guy I see online.
If I may respond to that.
Sure.
Several months ago, I was angry at this board. And this is the reason that I criticized you so harshly. Over the past few months, I've realized it's much more effective just to speak to you like you're not my enemy. And if you look back, I have not produced any derogatory videos for several months, and I don't intend to do that at this time. So the situation that you're talking about, that's not happening now. I'd rather just talk to you all like you're a person like I am. And all I'm saying, I hear this every day from people. The perception, you say that you really care about the members that are suffering, and I have to believe you, but the perception is not that way. And part of that has to do with the seeming lack of response of this board and saying it's not our responsibility, it's the city's responsibility. I don't really care whose responsibility it is. There are people in this community, I don't know if Joseph Bollinger is here tonight or not, but he's taken up a collection to help the people suffering at the toxic fire. You know, if we spend a lot of money here in Bella Vista, you know, I wouldn't mind at all. I'd be in support of spending a little bit of money to help the people that are suffering, buy masks, filters for their home, things like that. So I know I'm out of time.
It's going to start to move on.
All right.
Next up is Sandy Fosdill.
I'm Sandy Fosdick, 37 Stonehaven Drive, and I do agree with Kevin in regard to what property owner's perspective is of the board. I'm not saying you guys don't do wonderful things, I'm just saying what the property owners feel right now is that the board is not looking out for our well-being as property owners. I have two issues. Number one is the forestry urban landscape ordinance that the city's about to pass. It's my understanding that when this passes, their intention is to make property owners responsible for trees that are along the bike trail or the trail. If a tree is going to fall on the trail, and I just want to know, is anybody on the board fighting against this to protect property owners? We had a neighbor's tree fall on our land. It was $1,800 to get the tree removed because it landed in another tree and it was a steep hill. We can't have people on fixed incomes who lost their common property, privacy. Now the city is going to make them responsible for trees that may fall on the trail. They can't afford that, and somebody needs to look out for them. I went to the city council meeting, I spoke there. All that it had managed to do was put off their final reading until this next Monday. So I'm wondering if the board has more influence than we do as property owners, if they can talk to the city. Anyway, and the second thing is I'm wondering if anybody knows anything about the public hearing that's going to be held on the property that is along Evanston. I checked and it appears that there's someone who owns a property that is a single family residence. They're requesting a zoning change to make it agricultural property. My concern is there's a creek that runs through there. The land, the Evanston floods there. Everything on that property is going into Loch Lomond Lake. We've got billion-dollar homes on the lake, and I want to make sure that we have no animal waste, no pesticides, no organic manure that's going to be going into the lake. My question is anybody on the board who may have more influence than I do with the city fighting this? I will go to the meeting, I will speak. I've been told people can write letters. The person bought a property that's just a single family residence, and I think that's the way it should change. It should stay. I don't know what the person's intention is. I'm hoping somebody here knows more about it than I do.
First I've heard of that. Now, in terms of trees down on the trail, if I understand what you're saying correctly, you're stating that if a tree falls on a trail near your home, that you're saying that the city's saying you're responsible for it.
I'm saying that if they go out to look at the trails and they see a tree that may be dead, may not be dead, but could potentially fall on the trail. Again, the trail that we're not supposed to be liable for because we're not charging anything for, they're going to send a letter to that property owner, tell them they have to have that tree removed, and if the property owner doesn't do it, then they're going to do it and send the property owner a bill. And people are not aware of this stuff.
They're not getting paid.
And that's the problem.
I didn't vote for that.
Well, I know that when trees do fall on the trail, that the trails are maintained by volunteers, and we have got over 100 miles of trail in Northwest Arkansas where it's maintained and kept clear and taken care of by volunteers. Okay, there's been almost 8 years of examples of this happening successfully in the other communities here. So
are volunteers going to go out and remove these trees so the property owners don't incur an expense?
I mean, I can't speak to what every single one of these examples are going to be, but I'm sure there's things called, in good old hillbilly speak, widowmakers that are quite prevalent in many people's backyards and throughout a large-scale forest. And in terms of adding what has been quite an economic booster and amenity to the entire region. Ensuring that there's not dangerous things on them, I think, are important to have us brought to everyone's attention prior. Now, in terms of who's paying for them and how all that's going about, that is news to me that they're going to be sending you a bill about it, and I'm not quite sure how all that is manifested or if exactly what you're saying is spelled out for me to understand.
Well, I saw a video where the city council was discussing it, and that's what they said. There was even discussion of putting a lien on somebody's property if they didn't pay the bill. And when I went to the city council meeting to speak on it, they didn't deny any of it. All they said was that they would put off the reading another month so that people could voice their opinion. Well, people don't know what's going on, and that's the problem. So, like I said, I'm sure you guys do a lot of things for us that we're not aware of. It's just that we need somebody. I agree we need an assessment increase, but I don't think anybody's going to give it to you until people feel the board is working for the people, the property owners.
I just want to assure you that we will have someone, I will look into it myself, but I think we will have people on our staff look into those things to make sure that whatever they're considering has your input.
Great. Thank you.
Joyce Sawyer, please.
Joy Sawyer, 22 Dello Drive. Okay, so as you know, we have a social media presence, and so one of the questions that was asked by someone who could not be here tonight was when they installed the water line across Trafalgar that we hope is for the remediation of the fire. We don't know why else it would be there. Was there a check valve installed or a backflow prevention valve on the water line? There is an issue. No, the water is POA, right? So we want to make sure that there is because there's a concern of the water quality. My husband and I have invested about $250 in the last 3 weeks on buying a water cooler system that holds the 5-gallon bottles, because our water is so nasty at this point that we can't drink it. And we just bought a brand new $4,000 refrigerator that we don't want to ruin. I printed these and I'll send it around. Those are pictures of the bottom of our shower, which we clean regularly. There, in the last 3 weeks, there is a film on our shower wall and floor, a white film that we can't get off. It's not soap scum. I've tried to use CLR to get it off, which is the strongest thing I know of to use. It will not come off. Also on our washing machine, we have a front open washing machine. Underneath, same thing on the door. There's a white film there that's just formed in the last 3 weeks or so. It will not come off. So we purchased $250 worth of a cooler and water to drink. Now, to pay what we pay for water and to be threatened that if we don't pay our POA dues, they're going to shut our water off, at this point, may not be a real big threat. Just going to throw that out there. It is very poor quality, and you do have members concerned that live in that area that are having those problems. As far as the tree thing goes, I'm not sure if it was clear that they're talking about a tree that falls from a homeowner's property onto a trail. They're not talking about one that falls from common property to common property. And I think that we have kind of surveyed and we've talked about that, and nobody, I mean, that's common property, and before the trails were put there that nobody voted on, if the tree fell, it would just stay there. So unless the trail maintenance people want to deal with that, I feel like any POA member who gets a bill for tree removal needs to send it right here since you guys are gonna have control over the management of the maintenance fund. And you need to pay to have it removed, because you guys are the ones that put the trails into place. Last thing, and it kind of has to do with what they have both said, is the POA versus the city. And I'm going to wrap it up. But I said this the last time I was here. Please fight for us. Please fight for total removal of that stump dump. Our property values are affected by that. I got sick over the Christmas break, and I got a respiratory infection. It took me, I have asthma. It took me longer to heal because we had all that rain, and I lived within a half mile of that dump. And when I could not get rid of the cough until this last week. We had 3 days with no smell, and all of a sudden my cough is gone. Please, ask the governor, ask whoever it is. I don't care how much money it costs. It's a shame. It is a shame that there is stuff buried there that nobody knows about. And that's not anybody's fault who owns property over there. So please, I don't care. You guys, if y'all want to see Bella Vista grow, if you want to see the city grow, if you want to see the city change, then you need to run for the city and work for the city. If you want to be on this POA board, then you need to work for the membership. And you need to decide which is which. Because you're going elected here to sit here and vote with the city. That's not your job.
I have a question for Joy.
I'd love to answer.
How do you think the contamination is getting into the water system that's affecting your shower?
I don't know how it's getting there. I'm just telling you that we never had this problem until about the last 3 or 4 weeks. Something is going on in the water system. We don't know what it is. I clean my house on a regular basis. I'm not a nasty person, so I'm clean. And when there is something on my shower that I can't get off with anything, and believe me, we've used CLR is the strongest thing we've tried, because it's supposed to be for that kind of stuff, lime and whatever. It will not come off. And I don't know what it's related to. I'm telling you, something's in the water. It tastes bad. It looks bad. If it sits overnight, there's white stuff in the bottom of your glass.
Do any of your neighbors have similar problems?
I know that there are a lot of people on social media on the east side that are complaining about the water, which is why I asked about it tonight. Because we did have somebody ask, hey, did they put a check valve on that thing? Because our water all of a sudden is kind of gross. And this has formed just in the last couple of weeks. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, that's not my job. I'm just letting you as the POA know so that you can let the water people know something is up with the water. It's gross. I don't know what it is. It's nasty.
Okay, those are the 3 that I have signed up. Yes.
Tommy Friday, 25 from Mullen. I've got just a few questions I want to find some resolve for. Number 1 is, since we don't get the reports for about another month or something other for December, I was wanting to find out, have we paid the water department back on the loan that we borrowed at the end of December? Because I understand I was here a couple of months ago, and Mr. Mitchell said that we'd have more money coming in December and we'd be able to pay that back. So I'm just wanting to find out if, when I get the December report, is that loan going to be 0?
Right now, just a minute.
If you could just give me a yes or no.
Yeah, December, no. January, we'll have a lot more money. And the
What happened to getting it paid off in December?
Well, there was a lot of annual fees paid, there's a lot of prepaid assessments, but we haven't attempted to pay it in December, but we'll start on the new year, yes.
How much are we going to owe at the end of the year?
In the year, I believe we haven't borrowed anything since October, or since November. I believe it's 1.4 million plus interest.
But how much are we going to owe at the end of December?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. We don't even know. We got to close the books to see.
In other words, you're saying we're going to get more income coming in?
Yes.
The year closed December 31st.
Not more income necessarily in December, but be more coming in January, yes.
Okay, so the balance is still going to be $1,400,000 or $1,500,000.
Right now, before the books are closed, that was what I would be estimating.
So that was kind of a misunderstanding about getting it paid off. And I understand that this money is going to come primarily from the golfers, correct? Annual green fees, annual seat leases, annual private car payments, that money's coming in all at the end of the year. I looked at it today, based on last year's numbers. If everybody did the same thing, we'd get about $1.2 million from those golfers.
It's the golf, but it's also a lot of people pay their annual assessments all at one time.
How many is that we're talking about? How many?
Until we close out the books, we can't tell you
Getting us
that
$1,000
information.
to $24,000, big deal. That ain't very much money. It's primarily going to come from the golfers. Now, we're borrowing money to pay last year's on this year's income. So what are we going to do? We're going to borrow more money in February, March? Because we need about $700,000 a month to pay payroll, don't we?
We're meeting our expenses. We borrowed mainly for the capital, and we said we were going to borrow for capital.
Okay, let me go on to the next question. I don't think we got it paid. That was my main concern. We did not get it paid. That we promised it was going to get paid in December. So I don't know what happened.
No, we said that we would have it paid off either December or January, and it will be paid off by the end of January.
I don't think that's right, Mr. Justin.
Now, will it remain paid off for the entire year? We told everybody no, it would not, and that our goal was to reduce the amount that we would have to borrow at the end of next year.
I was at that meeting in October. $800,000 were borrowed. We borrowed another $350,000 in October, I think it was. And last month, I guess, or November, we borrowed another $300,000. We're broke. Look at the balance sheet. We had $127,000 in cash at the end of November. We're broke. What are we going to do about it? Next question. I have a concern. What is the difference in clubs and food and beverage? Can anybody answer that?
Clubs are the buildings where like Metfield would be Metfield Club, would be the Country Club, would be the Highlands Club, and then even Lake Point has a club as far as the building. The building and the restaurant are separate.
Okay, they don't make any money on those clubs, right?
Clubs have expenses, correct?
Only expenses. And those expenses are carrying the depreciation on this country club, the Loch Lomond.
Yes.
So is that closed back out into food and beverage then?
It all rolls up into total clubs. We have food and beverage is one part of clubs, and then clubhouses.
Okay. One thing I looked at today, and I don't understand it because we had an audit for 2017, and that was supposed to have been correct. But I do notice that the expenses from last year on clubs and food and beverages has been misappropriated to reduce the loss by almost $500,000. I don't know how we can change last year's numbers when it's been audited by an outside firm, and then we arbitrarily change those numbers to make it look better. There's something fishy going on there. I don't want to call it cooking the books, but it's some creative accounting, I think. I'd like to know why that is. Why would they be changed from last year if that was audited?
We don't audit per division, we audit the overall POA.
And so you move some of that loss into someplace else?
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
We looked at all the buildings, like the Country Club is a building, it has a restaurant. Lake Point was just...
About 1790.
Yeah, I don't know where he's even referring to.
Referring to 17 changing.
No, we don't go back and change 17.
If you look at the year-to-date numbers last year for food and beverage and clubs, and the total that was there for the year-to-date through there, it does not compare with the year-to-date this year for last year.
Right, yeah, some of the depreciation, stuff like that were in the restaurants when we went back to the clubhouse.
Depreciation, there's a lot of things in there.
Yeah, there were some
A
things.
lot of expenses were reallocated. So I'd like to know what's going on. Are we having somebody cook the books and make things look better for food and beverage and clubs? That's what it appears to me. It's $500,000. We need some answers. The members need some answers on why that was changed. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thanks for your service. My name is Steve McKee, live at 3 Tyree Place. I have a couple of questions also. Did the cell tower lease sale go through?
Not yet, almost, should be done by the end of this month or early next month.
So it's still on track, but a little down the road. And we did incur about $1.5 million in debt in 2018. So what is our debt service for 2019 going to be?
Borrow from the water company, apparently.
To pay it back, what is our debt service?
It's been paid back. There will be times of year that we will have more cash, we will be cash rich, and times of year that we will be cash poor. At the beginning of the year, when people pay in advance, we are cash rich and we pay off all that debt. As we go through the year, we will incur some of that debt. And the goal of the 2019 budget is to reduce the amount that we had to borrow this year.
Okay, so to be clear, the debt service is about $1.5 million.
Right now, it's zero as of today. Zero.
By the end of February, it'll be $1.5 million paid back.
Correct.
Roughly,
Yeah.
$1.5 million
I think
plus or
so,
minus.
Yep.
On another issue, there's a strategic planning meeting set up for February 19, and it's closed. But I think it would be, or to sort of reiterate what someone had said, it's a good idea for the board member candidates to be informed and up to speed, and if whoever gets elected would be able to hit the ground running. So would it be possible for the board to open that meeting up to at least the candidates, maybe on a observation basis?
At this time, I'm saying probably not.
Okay, and then at the Joint Advisory Committee Recreation meeting on January 14th, it was mentioned sort of in passing to extend the Razorback Trail, which I guess is the hard surface, from Blowing Springs out to Medfield. And so I went back and looked at the Bella Vista Trail and Greenway Master Plan dated 4/6/15, and sure enough there it was. It was sort of a little bit darker, but there is a bright yellow line going up the through the valley, through Branchwood, or not Branchwood, the valley courses, Burksdale and Kingswood. And then there's a blue trail going all the way to the Missouri border. I would suggest to everybody that if you haven't read that plan, to go look at it. It's very informative, I think. So with that, I guess, proposal, or just mentioning that it's going to happen, I guess, I'm just wondering, there's probably a lot of questions that I have, and I'm sure other members have as well, about the costs, the benefits, who's going to pay for it, how's it going to be maintained, what about the trees that are around it, and all the other questions that seem to be coming up. And then also what might happen at both ends of the trail. So for example, will we repurpose Medfield into a public park? Or maybe Brittany, or maybe we'll do that at Burksdale. So lots of questions. And then how will it help or hurt the POA financially and the membership, etc.? So I'm not really looking for any answers tonight on those questions, but I am wondering, well, I'm just wondering when there might be some sort of a discussion or public meeting about all of this.
So you're actually just a little bit ahead of us in that we're going to be announcing some coming meetings, public meetings, where we seek input. We have not yet set those dates, but we want to talk to the community about the possibility of extending the Razorback Greenway all the way up into the Medfield area.
So it's a possibility. It's not a done deal.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, your maybe is our maybe too. We don't know yet. So it's a good question, and we have the same question. We're not prepared to deal with the topic yet, but it probably will transpire here shortly.
So we'll look for announcements maybe in a month or so, public meetings. Great. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
I just want to catch everybody up on the Edmonton Road rezoning that Ms. Sandy was talking about. It's at 178 Edmonton Road, and they're wanting to turn into A1. And it was delayed in this last month's Plan Commission meeting because the owner failed to notify neighboring members or residents. So it should be on the February's Planning Commission. That's what Sarah from the city told me. And there's only 8 things it could be. It could be a cemetery, education, safety services, agricultural sales, stables, veterinary services, or alternative energy production. So that's what they're trying to do with that property, so everybody knows, since the question was asked. And about the forestry ordinance, the best contact in the city council would be Linda Lloyd, because she's the one that brought that up. And it is on the 3rd reading coming up next Monday. So there's always 3rd readings usually when it comes to an ordinance through the city. So last month was 2nd, and then there was public comment about it. And Doug on the city council did bring it up that there was a couple that attended that meeting but had to leave. And he did talk on that, and I believe Chris Nelson was videoing that. So if anybody wants to look at that, his company is called Apex Visual Solutions, and I think the mayor responded on that at the work session this past Tuesday.
Ellen, on Edmonton Road, is that property part of Bella Vista Village or not?
It sure is. It's right by Mount Lomond.
It's 120 what?
178 Edmonton Road.
178 Edmonton Road.
I think it's Mount Lomond. I just looked it up. And I was going to say, the ordinance, if they do pass the ordinance, the 3rd reading next Monday, we could officially be a Tree City USA. So that's the main reason, I believe. The other part of it I can't speak on to because it is still confusing to me, but I just want to let you guys know.
Anyone else for open forum? If not, let's move on to joint advisory committees. We have somebody from the Lakes Committee. Recreation Committee, I know we've got a couple from the Recreation Committee.
Hello, I'm Mary Henning, and this is Val Porter, and we're just going to give you a quick summation of what happened last month at our Rec Committee. There continues to be an interest in the possibility of having an archery range. Bow hunting is very big in our area, and there are about 400 student archers in Bella Vista. Deb Sorensen, who's on the committee, is going to be visiting the schools in March to learn more about the archery groups. And then a possible site for the range would be by the Arkmo land. So we're just gathering more information before any decision is going to be made about creating an archery range. We have great news concerning the cabins at Blowing Springs. We were given a super host rating from Airbnb, and that was based on the feedback from the visitors, so that's pretty exciting. There's been more trees planted at Blowing Springs. The Walton Foundation donated them. The racquetball courts at Branchwood have been resanded and the lines are painted. The pickleball players wanted the lines painted on the walls, but we are not able to do that because the paint will not stick, and so we'll continue to tape up the tape. And the Highlands Clubhouse now has a pool table and dartboards are on order, and so happy hour is going really great.
Bit more dangerous.
Jacob Tucker was a guest at the Recreation Committee meeting, and Jacob is a booster of the trails, and he suggested there should be more people involved to check maintenance issues, etc. He suggested perhaps a subcommittee, which Tom Judson said could possibly become part of the Recreation Committee. Jacob is active in the group NICA, which is the National Interscholastic Cycling Association, and he has expressed his interest in working with the Recreation Committee for the good of the trails. We also had our meet and greet on January 12th, and there were 50 people attending. There were 20 no-shows, likely due to the weather. It was rainy and cold that day. And 15 new residents came without prior registration. The 30-minute social time was well received, with attendees visiting with others and board members as well. States represented with the largest attendees were Texas, California, and Arkansas. Approximately 3/4 of those attending were retired. The next welcome and meet will be held on March 9th.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Golf, Jason.
It wasn't strategic seating. Golf meeting this last month, main highlights, maintenance, all the compliance issues, according to Keith, will be done by the end of March. Our financials were not available to the end of the year. As mentioned earlier, Mr. King brought up the Blue Flag program for 80 and up. We talked about that and it was approved through our committee and onto the board, so we're very happy to have that, and appreciate Bill bringing that up, as you said earlier. The other, on the handicap flags, we're going to also look at and test this year of opening up a lot of par 3s. They're going to go through a formulation with Keith and Daryl and the operations people on which par 3s, so golf carts with handicap flags can actually drive on the fairways. So that's something coming shortly. Kim had, from marketing, did a presentation, and she was excited about the inside Bella Vista being placed in a lot more locations, one of those being all the Arkansas rest stops. So that's about it for golf this month. Our next meeting will be again next month, the second Wednesday. And the strategic committee, if you want me to go ahead, the new strategic committee actually postponed our meeting this month until next month. So February 20th we'll be meeting in here.
Before you're done, Jason.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I correct in the new policy with the handicap flag that those 80 and over are from April through October?
Yes.
And those with a handicap license or state are year-round?
That is correct, yes.
There is a difference between
that is correct. The 80 and over will be April 1 through October 31st, and the regular handicap program is year-round. That's correct.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Ruth, I'd like to ask we had one of our employees receive an honor recently for the pro shop, and I would like to ask you if you would mention that.
We're actually putting together a email, or you want out? No, okay. We're going to send out an email, but Leslie Terry, our merchandiser, was awarded at the PGA show Pro Shop, one of the Pro Shops of the year. She received a Platinum Award for the Country Club, so she's done a fantastic job. We just found out about that, so it's a little preliminary. So once we get a little bit more information, once everybody gets back from the show, we'll put out a notice on the golf update.
Okay, let's move into new business. Oh, I neglected to say that the community involvement did not meet this month. Go ahead. He's going to talk to us.
That's correct, we did meet because it's a slow time of the year. But we are going to be meeting February 7th, which is 2 weeks from today, here in the boardroom. And I'm excited for 2019, and we'll be getting a new chairperson come that Thursday. And I encourage the board members to email me about any advice or anything we can do better for 2019 when it comes to community involvement. I know we did 2 good things this year, which was the coat drive. I still have people contacting me to give their coats somewhere, and I just tell them the DEB project, which takes care of foster families. And then, of course, we had the fireflies and tailgating, which we plan to do this year also. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Okay, next up, our proposed changes by the Rules and Regulations Committee to a few policies. So the policies, we're looking at a modification to policy 1.1, a new policy 1.12, and a modification to policy 6.02. Just like what Dwayne did earlier today, we want to make sure that everybody is aware where you can find this information on the website. I always say the good news is our website has a tremendous amount of information. Our bad news is we have a tremendous amount of information. It's hard to find everything. Okay, so you go under the members section, member resources, and then you go on the right-hand side on the governance and financial report, so almost the same place that we went before. Then you'll see governing documents. And then under governing documents, it'll say governing documents under board review. So if you go under there, you can see exactly what is currently under review. That was posted last Thursday, just prior to the work session. So if anybody had attended the work session, they would have been able to see what we were working on. So if you then click through, you'll see here's policy 1.10. And the main change here, so what we do is we go through and we redline everything, so we underline and put it in red all the changes that are being proposed by the Rules and Regulations Committee. So the Rules and Regulations Committee met a couple of times. They ended up voting unanimously to recommend these changes to the Board of Directors. So the first change, so what effectively you're doing on 1.10 by adding these provisions and then striking this, you're effectively pointing them towards a new policy, which is 1.12. Okay? And I will warn you, if you have any super in-depth question, Doug is at a legal conference, so I may or may not be able to answer your questions if you have them. So there's 1.10. The next one is 1.12. Now we didn't redline this because this is a brand new policy. Okay, so the entire thing is new, and so what the objective of this policy is to add more clarity to the disciplinary procedures for board members. Previously, it was fairly vague, and it just said the board has the right to remove a board member. This goes in and defines cause. It talks about the procedure of what has to take place. It's much more organized and orderly. And it also talks about different disciplinary actions. And this was one point of conversation that actually consumed quite a bit of the meetings. Previously, the governing documents just talked about the removal of a board member, but this actually adds additional provisions where you can actually have a reprimand, you could have a suspension, and a number of other things. So you don't have to go all the way to removal. So by adding more clarity, we felt that it made the process better. Hopefully, we won't have to use it anytime soon, but having more clarity to the policy is probably a good thing. So there was 2 pages on our website on that policy. Also, we put together a misconduct allegation form, trying to make it more standardized and less shoot from the hip. And so here's a form that will be made available on our website. And so any allegations against a board member can be filled out and then submitted. The last change was to policy 6.02, and this is the official POA publications policy. And this policy has to do with social media and making sure that the board is on the same page. It doesn't mean that the board has to always agree, but it does mean that the board needs to be respectful when they are in disagreement. So all these changes to the policy were 2 policies that have modifications and 1 policy that is brand new. They were voted upon by the Rules and Regulations Committee. They were forwarded to the board. If the board votes to approve these, it must go through 2 readings before they're official. So tonight, if the board elects to vote to approve these, tonight would be the first reading. Any questions?
Okay, let's take them one at a time. First one is modification of policy 1.10, being the first reading. I need a motion to bring that to the table. Need a motion on that, if you would, please.
Yeah, I move that we submit this as a first reading, and especially now we'll talk about it after we move to that point.
We have a second. Second. Okay. Discussion.
In my response to 1.10, it echoes what Tom said, that we had, in 1.10, we previously had a very limited scope of the process of disciplining a director. And so we struck the last part of that, and then we've added a 1.12, which appears to be a much more definitive process of dealing with these complaints. And therefore I move that we approve it, 1.10.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote on 1.10. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. And the new policy 1.12, the disciplinary procedure for directors, the first reading of this is also. Can I have a motion to put this on the table? So moved. Okay, second, please.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, Ruth, I would like to point out that on this, under 5.1, it talks about the different actions that a board might take. And I wanted to make sure that everybody realized this is not a progressive list. The paper that I read yesterday kind of indicated in the Weekly Vista that it was a step-by-step listing. It is not. There's no particular order to these. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that.
It's options.
It's options. It's 6 options.
Okay. Any other comments or questions, discussion?
It also states that it's include these but are not limited to. So the board has the latitude to, for the disciplinary action, to fit the discipline, the action that required that discipline. So the board is free to set anything that directly addresses a mitigation of our resolving of that misbehavior, I guess.
Anything else? If not, I'll call for vote on 1.12. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, modification of policy 6.02, the official POA publication release of information. This is also a first reading. Have a motion on that one. A second on that, please. Okay, discussion.
I would like to vote, I would like to offer that this reading be tabled. I am on the Rules and Regulations Committee, and through no intent, we made some changes that it has been brought to my attention that are questionable. I think that's as far as I like to go with that they are questionable. And until these are resolved in discussion with our attorney, I don't want to even have a first reading vote on accepting the changes, the modifications. I believe it would be premature to do that until we have a full understanding of possible miswording of some elements of this change.
Pat, I am also on the Rules and Regulations Committee with you, and I agree with your hesitation and your desire to table this, and I will provide a counter argument of why I think we should pass it. By the nature of the beast, which is social media in this regard, and use thereof, the breadth of examples are so vast, and the human language is so diverse that our ability to lay out an example base here that would satisfy the myriad of things that could potentially happen here is very, very difficult to do. And so, although the language in many ways may be loose, it also gives us, to coin your term earlier, the latitude to understand what examples we will see coming forward versus the predictiveness that we just don't have to lay that out in order to be able to say, well, this is the letter, and these are the core examples each and every time, because we don't know how people are going to describe themselves or showcase pieces of this media, because there's such a wide array of language styles. And so I feel like it's important for us to get this in writing and passed, especially since we've had a recent removal from the board in regards to use of social media like this. And we have seen in extreme cases of utilizing social media in which to position one's arguments and opinions within the Bella Vista community at large as fact. And there's many people that are going to be running for the board in the audience today, and to cue up on some of Kevin's stuff earlier, and I feel like we need to get something more solid out there before it's a new board that has to vote on it, and before they're entering into the campaign season, so they don't have an expectation that some of the behaviors of campaigning in modern day America don't bleed their way into their time as an actual board member.
And I'd like to echo Mike's reflection that we do not table this. When we had our work session, which was public recently, we said, okay, we can go to a first reading and then a second reading, and if it's a particular word choice that it gets changed by the first and second readings, like the word fodder, that's debatable what the word fodder for criticism means, but I think the intent of 5D, the change, is very, very a good attempt and very timely that we do it and not table it, but invite to Doug and to Tom, people who now have it on the POA website, to invite them to maybe change a word or two and for the next reading. But I think we had discussed it with Doug that we can change a word or two and still keep the process going. That's my hope.
Before I recognize David, am I correct that Doug, or lawyer was at the meeting and approved the writing of this?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, David.
That's the point I was going to make. I sat in on the committee meetings, and Doug was very involved in putting all of this together, and he indicated at the meeting that he was comfortable going forward the way it's stated. Well, I move the question.
Okay.
I have 2 points. Number one, Doug was forwarded a member's email that addressed this issue, and his reply, I think, gave undue emphasis to FOIA. This is not a FOIA issue, I don't believe. I agree with what Doug said about what you can do as a private entity versus a public entity under FOIA. I just am concerned that we're very careful about even insinuating or slightly implying that board members may be may feel that their freedom of speech is being inhibited by this. I believe that the board of directors takes and signs a statement of ethics, signs a non-disclosure agreement, and that those things are sufficient to govern this action. Okay. So my thoughts are simply that as the membership asks us for transparency, we should give them no reason to think that anybody on the board of directors is being silenced, that nobody on the board of directors is having second thoughts about whether they should say something or shouldn't say something. That our duty is to ensure that our membership is fully informed, including not only what we are supporting, but reasons for our not supporting certain actions. And I think...
Other discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second to modify policy 6.02. All those in favor?
I would ask that my motion to table be taken before that vote is taken.
Okay, do we have a
If
second?
I get a second on
Do we have a second on the motion to table? No second, therefore it dies for lack of a second. Okay. Going ahead, the modification of 6.02. Those supporting 6.02 on the first reading? By show of hands. Not supporting? One. Okay, thank you very much. Update of Department Fire, Ford Fire.
As we've been doing for the last several months at the work session and at the regular meeting, we provide an update regarding the Trafalgar Road fire and the official closure of the other stump dumps. Similar to what we've done earlier today and talked about where to locate this information, the city of Bella Vista has been doing, in my opinion, a very good job of updating their website with information regarding the Trafalgar Road fire. So if you go onto the website, you can see on the bottom right-hand corner of their homepage, you can see where you can click to get additional information. And if you click there, you'll see that they made an update yesterday as of the 23rd. I personally check this on a regular basis. I also have conversations with the mayor probably daily about the fire so that we're staying in communication. So I'm going to then move on to the closure of the other stump dump sites. because I really feel that the website for the city is the best source of information for the Trafalgar Road fire. For the other stump dumps, on January 11th, FTN Engineering sent a letter, well, actually it's 3 letters, to ADEQ requesting the closure of the 3 sites. As of today, we have not yet received a response. We also had a meeting, FTN, the POA, and ADEQ had a meeting, and that was really the basis for the writing of these letters. So the 3 sites that we're talking about are the Beth Knoll location, what we're calling is Old Trafalgar, not to be confused with the site that is on fire, but Old Trafalgar near York Drive, and then Hampstead. So we hope to receive a response back from ADEQ in the coming weeks regarding the official closure of those sites. Now, when I say closure, those sites have been closed in some cases for as many as 23 years, but we want to make sure that they are closed in the eyes of ADEQ. Regarding the west side stump dump, that stump dump is steaming. In addition to staff inspecting that site, we also had FTN Engineering inspect the site. It is steaming as the organic material breaks down. That site is going to be more extensive to remediate. We anticipate that FTN will have their written plans ready by the end of, probably the end of next month, hopefully sooner. They will then have to submit those plans to ADEQ for approval. Once they're approved, then we will move forward with the remediation. We hope to have the entire site closed in the eyes of ADEQ by the end of this year. Also, on January 14th, the POA received our second set of test results on Lake Ann and Lake Brittany. Those results, that analysis was put together by Arkansas Analytics, somewhat similar to December 14th. Both of the test results for the 14th of December and the 14th of January came back fine. We sent both of those to the city and had them post them to the city. So if you go onto the Trafalgar Road fire page, you can see those results. They're not easy to read. I apologize for that. They are written by scientists for scientists. So every time they come in, I always have to get the scientists to tell me what the results are. In both cases, they came out good. So I'm very pleased to report that. We will continue to test those 2 lakes through the duration of this situation.
Tom, in response to Kevin Dooley's accusation that we've been burying our head in the sand ever since this started, could you just give like a 2 or 3 minute history? Use your mic, please. Could you just give a 2 or 3 minute history of when we first became involved and what we've done? I don't think most people here understand what FTN Engineering is.
That's a great question. Okay, so what we did was we knew that that we had a complicated situation and that we needed to bring in experts. We talked to multiple companies, and every time we spoke with different companies, they kept on saying, you need to speak with FTN Engineering. Based upon the meeting that FTN and the POA had with ADEQ and how well that went, we walked out of that meeting realizing that we had done a good job in selecting FTN to represent us and to put the plans together. So FTN is doing 2 things for us. First of all, is they're developing plans on how to close the 4, and I'm kind of calling them the other stump dumps, not to be confused with Trafalgar Road fire. So they're developing those plans. They're also developing plans for the possibility of putting together a small size operation in the future. Where would that be? Where would that location would be? What would it entail? How much it would cost? And so they're working on that, and that is supposed to be finalized by the end of March or earlier. I can't remember. It's February or March. That's supposed to be finalized. We've also had preliminary conversations with the city about potentially partnering with them. What partnering means is yet to be determined, but if we can partner, we could potentially offset some of the cost on opening up a new site. Now keep in mind, the opening of a full-scale stump dump is beyond our capabilities and not something that we would do going forward. What we're talking about is a mulching operation with limbs that would be 3 inches in diameter or less. So much more small-scale operation, and it's just being considered. We could get the cost estimates of that and decide that that's not something that we don't want to do. But we also recognize that by not having a convenient location where you can drop off material, that a lot of people are putting it down the hollers and behind their house and so forth, and we don't want to avoid that. With regards to the Trafalgar Road fire, as I indicated earlier, I probably speak with the mayor on a daily basis so that we can share information and he can keep me up to speed. The city, in this case the municipality, is really taking the point, and they're working with the government, they're working with the governor in the EPA, and since it's a fire, they have the fire department, so they're really taking the lead. We're trying to be as supportive as possible. When they asked us to install the water tap, we did so as quickly as possible. We didn't want to be in a situation where they needed the work to be done and we were delaying it in any way. We would rather have completed the work well in advance before they needed it, and that's the case. Joe, I don't have an answer to your question on the backflow preventer, but I will get you an answer on that.
It just makes me wonder because we have a
I honestly don't know, but I will find out. That's where we're at. Any other questions?
Do we have an estimated time when the remediation, I understand, is going to take a really long time, but do we have an estimated time anywhere of when they might try to put out the fire? Because the smell is the thing. The smoke is the thing.
So I'm not trying to dodge your question, but I direct you to the city's website. They're providing the most information. So everything that I know is on the city's website. So I am not privy to any additional information that is not already available.
So your answer is no, you don't know when they might
I do not know.
I'm going to ask a question. Who is, in the end result, is going to bear the cost of the cleanup?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Will the POA have any cost involved?
I don't know. That may be a question for lawyers.
Do we have a blanket policy, insurance policy, or general liability policy?
We have insurance. We are confirming now whether it would cover a situation, but at this point, there's too many unknowns. Yes, sir.
One other question. On the existing 3 sites that you have listed under the very first paragraph, are they currently owned by the POA, or is that property that is now named for somebody else?
They are on POA common property. They are all located within the city limits of Bella Vista. The west side stump dump is actually in Rabbit. All 3 of the sites are there's 3 sites. One is have been closed for 10 years, one for 20, and one for 23 years. Unfortunately, I can't remember which one is which. But if you look at all the sites, they're fairly well overgrown. So I think that's going to help in the proposal to close those officially in the eyes of ADEQ.
The next question is, since these are existing old dump sites, have you asked ADQ to maybe do some inspections of those sites so they can establish a timeline of potential effects, environmental effects that those dumps have, so that down the road we have a starting point to look at what may be happening to any one of the affected lakes or water streams downstream from any one of those positions.
And that's probably more of a question for FCN Engineering than myself, but one of the conversations that we've been having is whether we need to test water upstream and downstream, and they have not given us an answer. ADEQ has not given us an answer on that. You test the water upstream and downstream. That way, upstream is what's coming in, and then what's going out. The upstream gives you a benchmark, and then if it appears the same going in and coming out, then you make the assumption that it's good. If it's coming in okay and it's coming out not okay, I'm sure there's better, more scientific terminology than that. But that would indicate a concern. So that's one of the things that they've talked about, but at this point we're really waiting for ADEQ to guide us as to what their needs are or what their requirements are.
Tom, a number of people have asked me, and I don't know the answer to these questions. There was a period in which the POA was operating the Trafalgar Road stump dump as a stump dump, and there was, as I understand it, a cancellation of a lease with Blue Mountain.
So we were leasing the, I can't remember, is it 2003, I think is when we started the lease. Don't quote me on that, I'm going from memory. And the lease ended in December of 16. We were leasing the property from Blue Mountain Storage the entire time. Does that answer your question?
No, okay, and that does answer the first part. Okay, and then was there a period when it was unleased and then Brown leased it from Blue Mountain, or does somebody, has there ever been an ownership change?
Yes, there is. So the land was owned by Blue Mountain Storage. It was subsequently sold to Brown's Tree Service in early 18, I think at the end of January of 18. Don't quote me on that. I could be off on that. So yes, the title was transferred.
Okay, thank you very much. That has been a point of confusion as to whether Brown's was leasing it or whatever. So
not to my knowledge. I mean, keep in mind that as of December 2016, we're not involved. Right. So whatever occurred after we exited that lease, we have no knowledge of or no control over.
Right, that's a great clarification.
If you go on to county GIS mapping, you can actually see historical pictures of the site, and there's one, I think it's from December of 16, which is about the time that we exited the property, and you can see that it's graded and been capped. And then you can see another photo that's approximately a year later where you can see vegetation on it. And that was prior to the property being purchased by Browns.
And just for the information, the Trafalgar site is not and never has been part of Bella Vista Village.
Right. Correct. It is outside of the lines of the POA, and we, in order to run the water line, because we had to cross the lines of the POA, we had to receive special permission from Cooper in order to run that line where it's currently located.
Who owned that stump dump like back in the 80s, 90s?
I don't know personally.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, and I think, then I think the mayor said that they have been researching title going way back in time, but I could be wrong on that.
We have understood that the POA actually operated that from like even back in the 1980s. And there are some news articles that have shown up on social media and things like that that talk about things that were dumped in there and that they have permission from the POA to do so. And just from people that I know that lived in this area that long ago, they say there's stuff under that ground that we don't even want to know about. So I just wonder, because at that point it wasn't a city property. I mean, you know, Bella Vista was a Cooper thing at that point. So I just wonder if you
The only
knew.
thing that I'm aware of is that, if my memory serves me correctly, we opened up in '03. I'm fairly certain it's '03. The only thing I am aware of is in '03 we opened it, we were releasing the property from Blue Mountain Storage, and we closed it December of '16.
Okay. Well, I knew it had been in operation a lot longer than that, so I just wondered if you.
Yeah, I don't know if it was, I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, you can go to a lot of different draws and haulers, and you can find a lot of nasty stuff. So.
Well, this was in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. It was a, I mean, you know, news article about it. So I just wondered who, because it doesn't state who owns it or who is running it, but I just know at that time we were not a city. So I just was, you know, had to be either, I guess, a POA or a Cooper thing.
Yeah, if you want to forward that article to me, I'd like to take a look at it, but I am not aware of anything other than when we leased it.
Okay.
Okay.
Ruth, may I add one thing about the stump dump? So at the city council work section on Tuesday, they mentioned that the Lowe's manager is reaching out to Lowe's corporate to see if they can provide masks for people, residents and members around that area that are affected. So that's a good piece of information to have. I'm not sure if that's going to actually go through, but the Lowe's manager is reaching out to the corporate office. And I'm not sure if that's on the city website yet. I haven't checked today, but that was as of Tuesday evening. And they've also said that there is going to be a burn ban if there already isn't within half a mile of the site, because I know the smell is already bad. And so that was two main things from the work session on that evening. And I know Councilmember Stephen Burke mentioned that he's happy to help with any way of getting those masks to people.
We were informed, we received a call from a property owner about reserving a room at Metfield so that they could hand out masks. We put in a call back to them that we've reserved the room. We haven't received a response back from that individual, so we're trying to help out to provide the room, but we haven't heard anything back yet.
Perfect. Thank you.
Question to this young man. I was going to suggest the city council that we have a burn ban because it's awful. You know, I'm like a half mile away from it. And when did you say the burn ban was going to start?
As of Tuesday evening, they were planning on to. I'm not sure if they actually initiated it. I'm assuming they would do it as soon as possible, but that was definitely mentioned on Tuesday.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, further information regarding a community meeting on the Chipotle fire is Tuesday, February 12th at 6 o'clock at Reardon Hall. So further information will be available. GM meeting is February 14th at 2:30 in the boardroom here at the Country Club. This is a closed session. The planning committee meeting will be Tuesday, February 19th at 9 a.m. contrary to what the calendar says, Bruce. In the boardroom at the Country Club. This is also a closed session. The work session is Thursday, February 21st at 9 a.m. in the boardroom, and we invite you all to come to the work session. Board of Directors regular meeting is Thursday, February 28th at 6:30 in the boardroom. And then March dates are March 7th, 14th, and 21st. So, what?
That's the first one. Third Thursdays of March. Should it not be the second?
Why are they the first? Why is March 7th? Should be 14th. Should be the 14th, 21st, and 28th.
Same as February.
Yeah. So those need to be corrected. That is correct.
What did we just correct?
What? The March meetings. It says the 7th, the 14th, and 21st. It really should be the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th.
Oh, yeah, so you're right.
And are we going to have a special Valentine's party or something like that on the 14th at the
I
board meeting?
cannot answer that. It's only what happens happens. Anything else for the good of the cause from the board? If not, we stand adjourned.
I don't know.